All right, babe, we're live.
Oh, you always do that so fast. And
It works
guys,
fast. It works fast.
John Wooley, the original gangster of CrossFit meme web pages, and the guy that always like nailed it when he would talk about masters athlete, because I was that masters athlete. So I appreciate you.
Well,
You
it
made me
helps that
feel
I'm old. I'm really old, so that helps.
you're not really old. Then
I'm
I'm
pretty
really
old.
old.
I'm pretty old.
But you've always made me feel seen with your memes, and I appreciate you.
Oh,
I was
thanks.
like, the internet wins again.
You do. You definitely do. Could you just give us a little insight in kind of how you started it, why you started it, and what kind of keeps you coming back to creating just awesome memes and reels to just give us that sense of laughter and lightness in most of our lives?
I'm still not sure why I started it, if I'm being honest. I question it almost every day of my existence. It's funny when I told the story a bunch, so I'm just going to make up some new stuff. But
That's fine.
when Trump won the election back in whenever that was, 2016. Is that right? Yeah,
Yeah.
2016.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it would be funny to have a Twitter handle called CrossFit Trump, and you do CrossFit tweets in the tone of Trump. So you take Trump's crazy bombastic tweets and you make them into CrossFit things.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm good at pull-ups because I have huge hands. Things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would take his actual tweets and just rearrange them into these funny CrossFit things. Because he said a lot of crazy shit.
Yeah.
Oh, it was great.
Yeah, great times, right?
Yeah.
The good old days.
Yeah.
And so I did that for a while. And I was trolling my coaches, and nobody knew who I was. It was like all anonymous. And my daughters knew I had it, and they thought it was funny, but they were both like, Daddy, you need a meme page. Like, this is funny, but it'll never gain traction. No one's sticking around Twitter. Like, it's a dying medium.
Mm-hmm.
And which I guess is pretty prophetic now in hindsight. But so I'm like, all right, well, I'll do that. So I gave my daughter my phone. I'm like, we'll create the page. And so she created the page, called it CrossFit Trump. She did the first meme for me. She told me, don't ever do memes with actual words on the picture. She's like, you need to make the captions all in the description. And I'm like, no, baby, CrossFitters aren't that smart. And so I did it my own way. And
And we don't
she's
want to
just
read that much. We want to
Yeah,
see
yeah.
it immediately.
yeah, well, I didn't know that much. Like I know like, all CrossFitters are designed to be visual learners. Like it's kind of the whole point of the sport, or a huge part of it. And so I started creating my own memes. It didn't really do anything for about 6 months, and then about 6 months in, it took off, and I got shared by a few people, and then a few more people, and it went from like 300 followers to like 10,000 in a month.
Amazing.
Yeah,
And
I was one of those ones. I was in it for the open memes that used to like I lived for the open season when you would just throw out as many of them as you possibly could. And it was great because it's really how we felt.
yeah, it was a weird time. Like admittedly, I caught a wave of like a lot of big moments in CrossFit that I leveraged to my advantage. Like, right at the beginning of it, Jillian Michaels said some dumb stuff about CrossFit. And so I just blew her up for a few days, and that caught the attention of Glassman, who got me on their radar. And then it wasn't much long after that, he fired all the media team. And so then I jumped in on that, to try to be the voice of media for CrossFit, since, they didn't actually have a media team.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's super fun. I was kind of actually, this leads me into it. I was wondering if you saw the Instagram post that Roman Krennikov put out.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
Did you see that?
All the drama. Yeah. All the popcorn.
Yep. And he went on Sevon last night. Did you see any of that at all?
No, I didn't get a chance to watch it. I honestly don't follow the sport that closely. I mean, I go to the games and I will go to semis occasionally and like some of that stuff. And like, it's fun to like be around people, but I'm not like a super CrossFit nerd. Like, and I don't care who's faster at thrusters than the next guy. And I could really care less if Roman's mad at Jeff or Jeff's trash talked him. I mean, I have opinions on it. Don't get me wrong, but it wasn't one of those things where I'm like, oh my God, I got to go see what Roman has to say. I already knew what he was going to say, like in my head, and I knew it'd have to be translated. And I'm like, I'm not sitting around for that. I'm not listening to Russian for 2 hours.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot got lost in translation, but the one thing that I thought was super interesting was he did it and he said it, and I think it was just like the is rubbing racing. Like he got bumped. I don't
Right.
He said it wasn't the trash talking, it was just that he got bumped and is rubbing racing. Also, too, like if a girl did it, like if it was two women that happened to and the woman said it, you know what I mean? It it would be, "Oh, you're so strong, you're so brave, you're so whatever," and then Roman just ate it in the comments. Like,
Right.
he put it up and he just ate it in the comments, and I felt bad for him, but also, is rubbing racing? Like, you know what I mean?
I don't know. Ask my girlfriend. I don't know. Like,
'Cause you remember when Cole Sager did it to,
right.
Holberg?
Yeah, there's been a bunch of instances where like similar things like this have happened. I don't view CrossFit like golf. Like it's not a gentleman's sport. Like I think that there are going to be moments where they put them on a field. Like the bike race is a good example. You had multiple people getting
Yep.
knocked over. I mean, the previous champ got knocked over twice. So, probably had a concussion when it was all said and done.
Yep.
Like
I know
who's he
you
gonna
had
blame?
the mass start in swimming, like, so many years ago where Josh
Mhm.
Bridges said that he got pulled underneath and he got scratched and he got so like, is there even a way to can you police that? I don't even know if you
No.
can. Yeah.
Have you ever run track or cross country, anything like that?
Oh, no, I was a basketball player. I do
Okay.
short, quick things and that's
So
but I've seen it. I've watched it. I
yeah.
like it.
Yeah, I had a kid that ran competitive track for years. So I went to every track meet for about 4 years, and she was really good. And we did a lot of cross country meets, and they're brutal at the start. And and again, to your point, boys or girls, like these were girls, so, young girls, middle
Yeah.
school to early high school, and there'd be 200 of them out there. And that first 30 seconds, man, you're holding your breath as a parent that somebody doesn't kick your kid over, you know?
Okay.
And that's middle school and young high school sport. So imagine what it's like when you get into college and older. So I think in the events where Dave or whoever's programming where they're going to be a jump start and everybody's together, you're going to have some of this, and the athletes have to realize that it's part of the game. And I do think they're going to have to put some thought into how do you judge that? How do is it legal? Is it illegal? I mean, I respect Roman for speaking out. It's his right to do so. It felt a little weird timing wise, but I don't care about that. Like,
Yeah, no, me either. We talked about it today and it's like, well, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna do a rolling start for running?
right.
Where
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
mean, you can't really there's no real way to police that or and talking trash is when you talk about sports, even in football or basketball or, tennis or you that that's kind of part of it. I don't
Yep.
know if people want it, but I mean, how do you talk trash? I feel like that's kind of what makes professional sports a little bit, which
Yeah, I think the three greatest athletes that have ever walked the planet were all major trash talkers.
right, yeah.
Like it's really this. And, if you put a list of the top 10 athletes total, I bet you 80% of them were major trash talkers at some point,
Do you
like it's
remember
just,
Reggie Miller?
oh yeah. I just finished watching that entire documentary on Jordan, and Rip Miller was a big part of that. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, come
Huge
on.
trash
That was
talker.
amazing, and the storylines that went along with Reggie Miller, with, Michael Jordan, with, Karl Malone, with all those guys, they had these stories and these narratives around them, and it made the sport more fun. Sometimes I don't know whether I'm watching a sport because I want to see like Aaron Rodgers this year. I don't know if I wanna watch the Jets because I wanna watch the Jets or because I want to watch the narrative around Aaron Rodgers. I feel
Right.
like that kind of coincides with each other. And I think that's happening to CrossFit right now.
Yeah,
I think
CrossFit
this,
isn't entirely sure what it wants to be as a sport right now. And I think the only part of this that was weird to me was Roman just kind of out of the blue putting Adler on blast. Like it would have made more sense to me for him to go on Savant's show and say his piece without the post.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
because like
Yeah.
that's usually what happens. You get interviewed, and in the course of the interview, you go, "Yeah, this dude's an asshole. He bumped me for no reason," you know,
Yeah.
and you still get the same leverage you got. Instead, you do the post, and now you have an entire, you know, I'll call it a news cycle, but 10 hours or whatever before you go in there of people doing exactly what you mentioned, which is railing on Adler or railing on Roman. They're like getting in their camps of who's right and wrong, and they don't even know the
Yep.
story.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Do you feel like, because obviously Adler, being the fittest, has been on many interviews, many platforms, and has explained this strategy-esque whatever he was doing and pushing, or like verbally, like, let's go, move faster, you're gonna run faster, and kind of like pushing him a little bit or whatever. Do you feel like it could have been in a response for all of the positive attention that Adler is getting, and maybe Roman feeling like he shouldn't be getting this good attention because it's dirty, as he put in the post? Like, do you think that could have been like a little bit of a response to that?
I don't know. I mean, it's hard for me. I can't really say because I don't know Roman at all. Like I've literally never talked to the guy in any capacity, so I don't know anything about his mindset or who he is, other than he's a really fantastic competitor.
Yeah. He's
Mhm.
a beast.
I know it would be really hard for me personally if I were going to win something or had a really high percentage chance of winning something and then got knocked out because of injury. And then you have to sit for a few weeks and listen to the person who beat you brag about winning.
Mhm.
And that's not a shot at Jeff either. Like Jeff has
No.
every right to brag. He had a great
Yep.
games, and
Yep.
by all accounts, he had a real shot at winning without Roman getting injured.
Right.
So, I think it's fair that he won, but I can understand why anyone, including Roman, would be sitting around and after a couple of weeks of that, it's getting pretty
Being
old.
Getting
pissed.
pissed off. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would. I mean, I've done that in my life. Like you just get pissed off after a couple of weeks and you lash out for no reason.
Mhm.
I mean, injuries happen. I'm the person too. Like I'll say it. I'm one of those fans that, and it's no dig at Adler. I mean, I was personally invested in Vellner this year,
Yeah, me
but
too.
Aren't
yeah.
we all are? He's my
Yeah.
favorite, and he always
Well,
gets so close.
Well, come on. We're both like kind of pasty. We were like in his
We-
camp.
Yeah.
That's the way it
Yeah.
works.
Yep. Makes sense. It makes
Yep.
sense.
But it's not like I dislike Adler or have any like skin in the game for Adler at all. It was kind of like, yeah, I thought Roman was going to win, and other than breaking his foot, I was just like, oh, it's Roman's,
To lose, yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I totally get that, and in any sport, it's kind of the same thing. Like the Eagles last year were healthy, like they were the healthy team out of that conference that came out. So yeah, I mean, that's part
Here's
of
what I
it.
will say. Like the goading him into running harder was a very smart move by Adler. And maybe that's what's pissing him off. Because when you look at the results, like when I looked at him, I didn't watch the event live. I was off in Vendor Village, probably drinking. And
Yeah.
I was, but when I saw it after,
the real place
Yes.
to be. Yep.
Why you go to the games.
Yeah, of course. That's the only reason you go. And if I remember right, he finished third maybe in that run. And when I was looking at him, like, holy crap, he's a big boy. Like, you got to run hard to finish third amongst that group. He has no business being that high. I'm like, I wonder if this is going to hurt his next few events. And the next two events, he cratered. Like, his worst two events came back to back. And I was personally convinced at the time, and I could be wrong. Like, I'm certainly not an expert, but I've run a lot in my life. And I know you can expend a lot of energy on a run and your next workout suffers.
Mhm.
So he lost a lot of points kind of back to back. And if it were me, I'd be sitting there second guessing myself of why did I run so hard? I could have finished seventh and then done better in the next two events, and it would have been a slam dunk to a first place, games victory. But so
Yeah.
it's all speculation again. I don't know any of
Oh,
these
of course.
guys. So
Yeah. And I think it goes into that whole question about like, wasn't there somebody else that was mad about like the strategy of the game of like cherry picking which ones you kind of like push really hard for, and then if you push really hard on that one, but then you kind of like make it through one or two because you can do really well on this one. Like, what's your opinion, insight on like strategizing the game? Because I know that so many times you get people saying like you shouldn't strategize the game, you should just play the game, and you should go hard all the time. Like, what's kind of your like thought process on like strategizing the games?
Well, I think every sport has strategy, so it's not fair to say they shouldn't be able to strategize the workouts that they're doing. I mean, you can't name a sport that there isn't some strategy where you're either slowing it down or speeding it up or changing the plays you're calling, or even individual sports in the way that they play them. I do, they do have rules in place for this that I appreciate, where you have to have minimum work requirement. So
I
I
like
would
that
not
too.
be a
Yeah.
fan. I would not be a fan of someone just saying, all right, I'm just going to phone this one in and finish in the bottom third and do great in the next two events. Like, I think you have to hit the minimum work requirement. And so I think they need to find more ways to enforce that. But,
Hmm.
I don't think it would be fair to say you have to be fully intense, through every workout. It's just, um, you're penalizing some people by doing that. You're like, Roman's a good example. Like, I think it was a mistake for him to run that hard, but I don't know him. I don't know how good a
Hmm.
runner he is, and obviously he's a very good one. But I know if he had probably strategized a little more and laid back in the 5K, uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
air
Yep.
quotes,
You're right.
um,
That
he
was measured.
likely.
Didn't they say it was measured like 5 times, 5 or 6 times? So it was like
Mhm,
the perfect measurements. Yeah.
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 yeah, perfectly wrong. But I know if he had like laid back some, he probably would have done better in other areas. It's no different than like the workouts we do in the gym. Like, I was in a competition once. Humble brag, I finished first. It's the only comp I've ever won.
Hey,
Hey.
congrats.
And it's a long time ago. I'm not that great now. And the very first work, I had done all the workouts leading into it, so I knew what they were going to be like. And the first workout was a combination of rowing and burpees. And the trick to doing well at it was to row slower, not harder. That way you
Hmm.
could go as hard as you could in the burpees. It was a real strategy type workout. And I was one of two people that made the time cap because I knew that and others hadn't done it. And they're all going hard in the row thinking that's where you win. Now keep in mind, this is, 7 or 8 years ago when people weren't even as strategic thinking as they are now. So
Hmm.
I think it's totally great to let them strategize as long as they're hitting a minimum work requirement.
That was kind of, I mean, it's not so long ago because I feel like that was the same. We had just talked about this, that workout, the ski bag
Hmm.
that they did, where it was like everybody thought it was, or that, yeah, right. It
Yeah.
was one in the ski, and then everybody went out way too hot in the ski and died on the squats.
Hmm.
And it was just like, oh, well, I mean, if you don't know yourself, like you have to strategize because you know yourself. It's not, I played basketball in college. I wasn't going to destroy myself in the first two quarters. So I had nothing left in the third, fourth
Yeah.
quarter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Exactly the point. That's exactly the point.
Yep.
But, and then the other kind of little nugget that's in here that, I mean, kind of has nothing, he just brought it up, but I think it goes like way broader than this is, um, you always have those athletes in every sport that you kind of hang on every word. It's, you know what I mean? Like they're just bigger than the sport itself. Like you wait to see what they're going to say. You wait to see what they're going to do. You want to see what they're going to do on Instagram. And whether you love them or you hate them, you're ready for it. Like you want it. Rich Froning, Matt Frazier, Tia Claire Toomey, uh, even Vellner to a certain extent. Like people, if they're talking, we're all there ready to
Hmm.
go. And I just wonder if that's kind of what CrossFit's battling. Like, I feel like they need that. I feel like they need those polarizing people to drive those narratives and those storylines, whether good, bad, indifferent, whatever. But it still kind of makes the sport. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah. And I think they're starting to get that. Ricky Garard's a good example of someone who's coming in with some fire and history, and can be very loud, and has in his past has said, you know, kind of real brash things, which is, again, totally fun and cool and his right to do so. I'm not criticizing it. It's just like he's got a fiery kind of competitor
Young
in
guy,
him.
yeah, just hungry,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And you don't get like Vellner's the kind of the opposite of that. And I hate to use those two as a comparison because they have the history,
They
but
have
Yeah,
history. Yep.
yeah.
Vellner's like kind and funny and charming, and when he finishes a workout he's joking, and so
Hmm.
I think it's good to have some people in the sport that are going to bring a different edge to it, and it's a sport. You want it to have viewability.
Yeah.
If it doesn't have viewability, the sport's going to die. Like there has to be, Castro says it, it's got to be a spectacle,
Yeah.
and so you need it some, but I do think you've got to, find these moments and better define sportsmanship. It's
Mhm.
one thing to be out there and say, "Come on, let's go run. You want to run with me? Let's run."
Yeah.
Like I think that's good trash talk. It's a whole different ball of wax when they start saying really horrible things about their moms,
Yeah.
and whatever,
Yeah.
like, or because there's a lot of horrible things you can say about people out on a field. Like I can give you story after story of things I've heard on high school track meets that were just really horrible,
Mm.
so.
Yeah, and you can even I draw the line when you start touching people when it's not a sport that requires that. Like
Yeah.
I played basketball, so if a girl elbowed me too hard in the chest, I could be like, "Okay, well, you're about to eat it after this timeout
Right.
because we're gonna lock up and we're gonna go." But if it's a sport where that's not required and that's not a thing, I I personally don't feel like the touching thing is appropriate. You know what I mean? It
Yep.
just doesn't. You don't do it in golf. You don't do it in tennis. You don't. There's no. You don't do it in swim. Like there's millions of sports you don't do it. But that was just my
Well, I
take.
think to your point in the beginning, John, when you were saying like any track meet, even just a regular track meet that you've seen, you know, outside of CrossFit, like there's that initial start. So there is that
Right.
that chance for impact and being very close to each other. And you kind of have to hold your breath and kind of make your way through. But then once you make your way through and you're not surrounded by 10, 15 plus people to start with, like it's not a contact sport anymore. Like
Yeah.
it's an individual sport, you know?
Well,
So I
it's
think
interesting. CrossFit is always an individual sport, in training. This
Mhm.
is where it differs from basketball, as an example. Like when you do basketball, you can do pickup games, you can do one-on-one, you can, you practice as a team. These guys aren't practicing riding a bike with 30 other people.
Right.
That's a
They're
good
just out
point.
riding a bike. Like they're
Mhm.
not practicing running in a pack. And they're always competing. Like, even at semis, like, there were no events where they're in the same lane trying to grab something, or competing for a single prize. They're in their own lane doing their own thing at their own time, making
Their
up
own
their own
equipment.
strategy. And
Mhm.
every games you run into this. Every games we've had multiple bike races over the years where they've wrecked. You've had multiple swims where they're kicking each other in the face.
Swimming on top of each other. I know
Yeah.
Josh Bridges said that was like that one year, like he dealt with people swimming over him. I think Sam Briggs was the
Yeah,
same
Sam Briggs said it
thing.
too. Yeah.
Like everybody was just swimming over her and stuff like that. So then do you think that this is a fair part of the games as an individual games and it should only be for teams?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't call it fair or unfair. I just think it's going to be anytime they create an event where you have to have a group start, you're going to run into some of this stuff. And they either have to clearly define what the rules of engagement are, or they have to let it happen and nobody should complain about it,
Mm.
and,
Yeah.
unless it's like wildly out of the norm, like an elbow to the face, or, something
Mhm.
like that. But
Mhm.
I think it's probably just growing pains of the sport. I mean, come on, we've only had the games now for what, a decade, or a little
Yeah. A
more,
little over. Yeah. Yeah.
and certainly at this level, where you've got, thousands upon thousands of people coming to watch it, and now true professional competitors. So it's a little growth that still needs to happen to figure some of this out.
Well, the fan base itself, like the fan base of CrossFit itself, it's always, we have to we hold ourselves to a higher integrity, right? Like uh we don't we don't make we're there for the person that is finishing last. We help, you know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
a family community fan base and whatever. And I think what I'm starting to see is this shift of that where it's like now it's camps. So like I was trying to say before, Roman and Adler, I had no dog in the fight. So I wasn't rooting for anybody, but let's say it was like Rich Froning and Matt Frazier and they were duking it out and whatever. And I, as a fan, an original fan of Rich Froning, I would just be like, well, it was Rich. Like you just got to suck up the trash talk. You just got to suck up
Right.
the like get tougher, get harder, get whatever. It wouldn't even be like a male female thing. It would just be like I'm a fan of this dude, so I don't know, you're Charmin. You know what I
Right.
mean? But
Yeah.
like, and I think that's kind of, I don't know if we're so like, let's love everybody so much anymore, as now we're kind of, it's turning into like, okay, this is like a different type of atmosphere. This is a different type of community. This isn't the same, like, we all love each other in the box. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Well, in the old days, which weren't that long ago, to your point of Froning, he was, wins 4 times in a row, and then you have Frazier come behind and win 5, and Ben Smith splits the difference between the two of them.
I was a
In
Ben
those
Smith
days,
fan,
yeah,
by the way.
Ben's great.
Yeah.
Ben's great.
The
Yeah.
Smith family in total is terrific. But in those days, you didn't have Mayhem and Hard Work Pays Off and Proven. You had Rich and Matt, and then Tia coming up.
Yep.
And so, to your point, I think everyone did kind of look at the sport as going, man, look at these superhumans. I can't believe anyone can do this, let alone these 2 to 3 people. And then as we've seen more and more people do it, now it's truly becoming a sport. It's no longer like shocking to see somebody do, to see a woman do it, a super heavy snatch, as an example. Like, it was just a few years ago, you'd see somebody do a 200-pound snatch and everybody's acting like they cured cancer. Now you've got semifinals athletes that are just on the bubble of barely making semis that are snatching that and not even blinking at it, and,
Yeah.
so I think you're right. I think it's turning into a real sport, and people are going to latch onto their athletes. And I suspect the Mayhem fans of Rich probably love Roman because he's part of Rich's team,
Of course.
and people like Adler because he's Canadian, and they love Pat and the rest of the Canadian contingent, and everybody finds who they like because of that. Just we all have our biases that we lend toward. I just like the old people because I'm old. That's how it works.
I mean, that's me. It's not that
Yeah.
I don't respect what Frazier did. It's just because when I found CrossFit, it was the year Frazier was like I think he took second place. It was Froning, Frazier, Kalipa, or Kalipa took second
Yeah.
place. It was that podium. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm always, and yeah, I'm older. I'm in my 40s. So Froning it is. But I'm always going to root for Annie Thorstadter too. Like, I'm always going to want to see her podium everywhere.
Annie was my first CrossFit crush. I love Annie. She's a really, really sweet person, but she was the reigning champ when I started CrossFit. And so in my mind, she's still just a superhuman rock star,
Yeah. Yeah. When she came back after having her daughter and podiumed, I think I cried a little bit. I'm not even gonna lie. And when she
I
hit
think
that
we all
snatch,
did.
yeah.
She's just an amazing person to be able to share what is truly possible, especially as a woman, as a mother, and like seeing what she can do was incredible. And she's still competing at at the highest level that that you can in the sport. And she just carries herself in a way that we can all relate to. We like it, we appreciate it. I also do enjoy when she kind of gets in those spaces where she kind of does her little bit of trash talking, I guess you could call it, where she's very confident and she's like, no, I can do this, or no, I can do that. Like, it's super cool to see that big confident side of her. Do you feel with the shift, when we were talking about Froning and we were talking about Frazier, and then Tia obviously stepping away this year to start her own family or whatever, do you feel like there's a sense of, I don't know if you want to say pressure or expectation, or like with these new athletes coming in, like Medeiros won it twice. Did you feel like that people were saying that there's a lot of pressure on him to be like the three-peat? Like, were you going to do just like Frazier, and were you going to do it like Froning? And then, with Tia stepping away, that whole conversation of like, does this win count for Laura, for instance? Like, you know what I mean? Like, do you feel like there's that sense of pressure for these athletes that are in the sport now of like, you only won because somebody wasn't there?
Well, you have a bunch of thoughts on this. We just had Errol Lowen on the show, and she actually said to me, shocked me on the air. She's the first athlete I've ever had that ever said this. I said to her something along the lines of, I thought everybody who should have won did win. regardless of who was or wasn't there. And
Mhm.
she goes, I disagree. She goes, if
No.
Tia and Mal had been there, I would not have been on the podium.
Oh,
Wow.
And I still disagree with her. I still think she had a very good shot to be on the podium, regardless of who was competing.
she was a
But I
beast.
mean,
She's amazing.
she was the one that was there, so I shouldn't really argue with her, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's always pressure, I mean, for anyone that's competing. I can't imagine the kind of pressure that would be on Justin, who I just think the world of. He has a terrific family, and
Mhm.
his mom is like the nicest woman you've ever talked to. And he is too. Like, he's just the nicest young man. Like, love him. But I'm sure there was a ton of pressure for him to repeat, for a third time.
Mhm.
I can't imagine how there couldn't be. It's still such a new sport. I think that's what is a little different about CrossFit than some, sports that have been around longer. There's not enough things to insulate them from the noise. Like in bigger sports, you have, besides the fact you have more money and can get away easier. You have more agents. There's more people in between you and the people yelling at you. And in CrossFit, like, any Tom, Dick, and Harry can get on a microphone and talk about it, or can tweet it, or send them a DM, or just tag them in a post. And they're on Instagram. They see it. Trust me when I tell you, these athletes see everything they get tagged in. As someone who's tagged them in a lot of bad shit, they see it all.
Mhm.
And it becomes stressful. And
I believe that wholeheartedly, and to your point also too, I feel like in other sports they're used to it more. Like they get more media attention when they're in college. They get more media attention. I mean, even in high school, LeBron James was like these kids that are coming out of high school that are high school All-Americans and McDonald's All-Americans. Like they have to deal with media and social media presence, and now they're getting paid for it.
yep.
Like now the name, image, likeness, like these kids can get paid for it. And I feel like it's possible that CrossFit athletes, especially these young ones that are coming up, aren't used to that and aren't ready for that. And now that media has gotten so like, like the media is becoming more charged in CrossFit now too. So with all of that happening, I feel like it might be harder for this young sport to navigate all of this new media, this new attention, this new money, these new sponsors and stuff like that.
Right.
And for these kids that are younger, might be more difficult to handle.
Oh, I'm sure. And the only sport I can even think of that compares to CrossFit in the age of athletes, where you have 17, 16, and 17-year-olds that are actually competing with the 30-year-olds. Like, most
Mhm.
sports aren't like that.
Yeah.
Most, like, you rarely see it. And even when you do see it, like maybe Major League Baseball is a good example. They have minor leagues, so very few of them get up to the majors and
Yep.
are playing in the World Series. They're playing, AAA or single A or double A.
Yep.
But tennis has a lot of young people competing against the older ones, but it's a huge money sport. And no offense to the sponsors of the CrossFit Games, these are real sponsors we're talking about, not, I'm not
Yeah.
going to
You're
name
talking
the
$100
brands,
million.
but
Yeah.
yeah,
You're
you're
talking
talking
about,
Adidas
yeah.
and
Yeah.
Nike and
Yep.
Puma and,
New
like,
Balance and
Absolutely.
yep.
and they're putting the real money behind it. I mean, some of those brands I just named sponsor CrossFit athletes, but trust me, there's no way they're putting the money behind the CrossFit athletes that they put into Serena Williams,
Right.
Venus
Yeah.
Williams, whoever, so I'm sure it's really, really difficult for them to separate. I tell everyone, like, I've been asked this question many times. I say it over and over and over. Go play real sports, man. You learn how to lose. You
Yep.
have to learn how to lose before you can learn to win, and go play team sports. Get on a cross country team, basketball, football, baseball, it doesn't matter. Just play a team sport, get yelled at by a coach, and lose some games. You'll be a better athlete for it every time.
Oh, absolutely. Well, as you get a tougher, I guess, thicker skin,
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
you get a way thicker skin,
Mm-hmm.
and man,
I mean, that was going to be my question
Yeah.
to you. And I'm sure you've probably answered this, like you said, a million times before. Like, do you believe that there should be an age limit for athletes to be a part of the elite individuals in CrossFit?
No, I mean, there kind of is now. They have a teen competition, and there are very few teens that are talented enough to come up and compete. And I
Mhm.
don't think there ever will be, just simply due to the physical dynamics of our bodies. I mean,
Yeah.
first of all, very few young boys are going to be like LeBron James, who was I'm from Cleveland, so I'm really familiar with LeBron's story,
Yeah.
and he looked 40 when he was 16,
Yeah, he was
like
a whole man.
A
He
whole
was,
man.
yeah, he was,
he was a big dude. Very few
Yeah.
people like that. And I think you want those people that are like naturally gifted to have the ability to compete if they want to do so. I wouldn't want to hold them back, but there's so few, there's no reason to put a blanket rule in place. And I
Mhm.
do think, like, for the Mal O'Briens of the world who are insanely talented, I want them to have the opportunity to do it too. And sometimes it isn't going to work out. They need to go other avenues and do the smart thing like she's doing now. Like, I think the world of her. She's just doing an
Mhm.
incredible thing for herself by taking some time off, and that's great. So I think
I
it's fine.
extremely agree.
I don't think you'll see a lot though. Seriously don't think you're going to see a ridiculous amount of young athletes overtaking the sport. It'll probably always kind of look like it does now, which is 2 or 3 that are rarely good. Like they're like little snowflakes out there, and then you'll have the greater population being in kind of their mid 20s, and then you'll have the 1 or 2 Pat Vellners out there just holding on and still competing at a high
yeah,
level.
man.
Let's go.
Do it for us, baby. Do it for us.
Yeah,
With no insight or no thought of like slowing down. He hasn't said anything about
Yeah.
him slowing down yet. So let's go. Keep going.
I love what he's doing, and by all accounts, he's just going to keep doing it. So more power to Uncle Pat. He's a great dude.
Uncle Pat. I forgot that song. I remember that
Uncle
song.
Pat
when it
is
came.
so strong.
Yeah.
Yep.
I remember that.
This is that medley that just stays in your head for
I always
hours after you saw it.
I always just worry about the younger athletes in any sport, but I mean, especially in CrossFit, because CrossFit's becoming kind of so polarizing that there's no, yeah, I agree with you that the feeder program for CrossFit is perfect. Like most of the teenage boys, they just don't, they're not 25-year-old boys where their body's matured and they're just big enough and strong enough and have that. So they'll get weeded out, and the girls too. Like it takes time, whatever.
Yep.
So I agree with you on that. Just the ones that get that fame so quickly and get that recognition so quickly and get those, 900,000 followers or whatever so fast. I always worry about them. It's just such a whirlwind. I know you have girls. I know that they're, they're older girls. They're not, like I have a 6-year-old. I know they're not
Right.
6, but it just is. I always worry about them, and especially young girls, because we just emotionally, we just handle things so much differently. And when we get that backlash or whatever backlash might come from the stupid internet, we freak out immediately. It's just in our nature to do that. And so I just hope that, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I would guess that part of the problem, particularly when it comes to the young athletes, male and female, is that they're all of an age where their parents didn't have social media. Like, and so I'm making just a guess. I don't know this for fact, but my kids are 22 and 20, so they're right in that age, right? And I didn't get a cell phone until I turned 30. And I think a lot of people are that way. Like, and and when after I got it, the big social media thing, because you couldn't get on Facebook without a college pass at the time, was MySpace, right? So,
yeah.
I was a master of HTML, by the way. Oh man, I had my top 10 friends ranked. I crushed the MySpace game. It was the best. I had so many dates off MySpace. I miss it. Rip. Anyway,
did you have a profile song? A MySpace profile song?
Of course. I mean, it was probably Creed. Like, swear to God, that's how long ago this was.
Yeah.
It was probably just something terrible, just like a horrible song, My Sacrifice or something. But anyway, I just suspect, it's great, right? I suspect their parents either haven't or don't know how to coach them through this. Like, I just heard an interview with Haley Adams, and I love Haley. She's a friend. She's been on our show several times, and she was on the Invictus podcast with Bryce, who has a terrific show, by the way. And she said how overwhelmed she was by social media, people commenting on her body, and she has, body dysmorphia issues or body image issues, and how much that weighed on her. and I don't blame her parents for that, but I can speak from experience with my daughters when they were in middle school. I remember this vividly when my youngest comes home and goes, "Oh, a bunch of little boys got arrested today in middle school because one of the little girls had taken a naked photo of herself and sent it to one of the boys, and they started forwarding it around, and now it's
Yeah.
kitty porn, right?"
Yeah.
And so all the little boys got arrested. And so I had to sit my two daughters down who were in middle school and talk to them about respecting their bodies and not using the internet for, these photos live forever. You can't use Snapchat for this, and
Yeah.
and coaching them through it. And I've always done that through every stage of their life, talk them through, the kind of the ramifications of social media and what it can mean to them. And, granted, they have, 1,000 followers, not 900,000, but I feel like they've always done a good job of navigating that because we had open dialogue about it.
Mm-hmm.
And, I would suspect most of these kids haven't had that benefit. I could be wrong. I'm just speculating, but, I think parents need to lean in on this early on with their kids, particularly if they're going to be in a competitive sport with a lot of fans, around what does this look like for your kid? And, you can't protect them from everything, but you can give them some guide rails of what they should be
That's
thinking
such a
about and
great
looking at.
point.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that like literally that's a great point because I mean, I don't even I had AIM. Like that was my first.
Yes.
AOL Instant
Yeah,
Messenger.
Checking
that was
checking the
my
mail
first.
for the disc to see if it
Yeah,
showed
man.
up.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Had the stack of free mail of all the free
Yes.
AOL discs
yeah,
that you would get. Yep.
absolutely. And when all of this stuff came out, I don't think I got Instagram till I got with you, and that was
Mhm.
like 2012. It's
Mhm.
not like I was on because I didn't care. At that point, it was, I graduated, I got out of college, I wasn't on the computer anymore, so I didn't care anymore, and that was the time of MySpace when MySpace was huge, and so I didn't have one of those. I just didn't
Right.
care about it.
Mhm.
Wasn't anything I grew up with, so it wasn't a thing. And when you see, I always noticed it because when Haley would compete, she would always compete in these giant shirts.
Mhm. Yep.
And I had no judgment about it because that would be me. Like I'd be out there like Chris Clever was out there in the board shorts and the sports bra. Like that's just I don't. So when I saw her and I was like, all your peers are not dressed like everybody else is not. So I always wondered about that. But yeah, that's a really good point. That's not something girls that are happy with themselves, that are, content and comfortable in their own skin. They're going to go out there and wear this big t-shirt to show, and her body's gorgeous. You know what I mean? Like she's
Yeah.
a beautiful girl and all of her
Yeah.
peers are doing, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Well, it's hard to convince people that don't see themselves that, like, I've had body image issues my whole life, and like I'm 53, and in my age group, I'm easily in the top 10% of men in my age group fitness wise. That's amongst all fitness aspects, not just CrossFit, right? Like, I don't mean that bragging. It's just mean there's a lot of really unfit people in their 50s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if you're fit at all, you're
Yeah.
going to rank pretty high, right?
Mhm.
But I have all the same like worries. Like I don't take my shirt off at the gym as an example. Like I just don't like to do it. I'm just insecure about it. And imagine what it would be like if you had 900,000 dudes messaging me
Yeah.
going, "Why don't you take your shirt off, man? We want to see your abs." Like that's what they're doing to her. Why don't you take your shirt off?
Yeah.
Why are you dressing so baggy? We want to see the goods, and
Yeah.
it just weighs on you over time. Like, and again, good for her for taking time off, and sounds like she's living her best life. I'm so happy for her. She looks
Good. I haven't seen too much and I haven't even looked for too much just because that's what she was doing. She was taking time off, like Haley too. It's not like I'm like, hey, what are you doing in CrossFit? So I go to her page. Like I just,
Mhm.
if she pops back up in my algorithm because she happens to be doing the open or something, then cool. But I'm happy for them. Like that's
And I think it's a great
that's fair. And
I
they're young. They're so young. God. Like I was
they
so
are young.
dumb
Yeah.
at that age. Like you're so like you just don't know yet yourself at that age.
No, and
Well,
I
even
think Oh, go ahead, John.
Well, I was gonna say you have to continue even as they get into their 20s. Like you still have to continue to coach them. My kid went off to college. She's in her second year, and I laid down ground rules before she left the house, not around like what her life should look like, but I'm like, listen, you're going to be on your own and I'm not going to be there to protect you. And you need to understand what you're getting into. Don't ever take an open drink from a boy at a bar ever
Yep.
again. Closed
Mhm.
drinks only. You got to travel in packs. You have
Yep.
to have one friend with you that has my phone number in their phone at all times. And that friend needs to be somebody you intimately trust to save you when something horrible happens.
And
Mhm.
every woman has had those talks. Like
Yeah.
I've had those talks. Like every girl that has grown up with in a safe household has had those conversations with, you know, their
Someone, yeah.
parents. Yeah,
Mhm.
they will tell, even best
Yeah.
friends. Like you have best friends that will tell you like, no, we're all walking together. No, make sure that you look in the back seat before you get in your car. Make sure, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
we've all had those conversations. It's just absolutely ingrained in us every single day. And I can't even imagine going through that with the fame and like the fame, the money, the notoriety, at all of it. Like I can't imagine dealing with it with all that stuff too. That's crazy.
I think another thing that they both showed us, everybody, men, women, children, teens, is that like step away from social media, put the phone down for a little bit. And I think that we're so focused on like, whether it's likes or who's DMing us or who's doing this or what do we have to share. I mean, and obviously they're on a much bigger platform, and I'm sure they have stuff with like sponsors and commitments that they have to do this and they have to do that. But I think that it's just another reminder of like life happens not on the internet, not on the computer, not on social media. Like there's so much life to live, and go live it.
Right.
And usually when you step away, when you put your phone down for like more, and you are more present with your people and you're more present in each moment and situation, you create those memories and not feel like you have to take a picture and post it, and how much more you enjoy it. So I
Right.
think it's a great reminder for all of us to like use the internet for what it can do, which is like certain situations, even like this, like being able to connect with people that we would never have the opportunity to connect with any other time if we didn't have this. And
Yeah, super cool,
also,
by the way.
like step away and live and be present. So I think for both of them being so young to be able to give such a good, like such a reminder and such a gift to all of us, like appreciate them so much. And like, I think it's so cool for us to see that.
Yeah, I agree. Although I'm ignoring all that advice, I'm always on my phone. So.
Guilty too.
Yep.
That's what I'm saying. We all can learn a little bit, but
Yep.
We try every
Sure.
once in a
we
while.
do.
I mean, we're trying to like I can't even imagine raising two daughters. We're trying to raise one son, and and as much fun as he is, and he just does dude stuff sometimes where he just takes like flying leaps off counters and doesn't care, and it's just like, oh, but you just they don't come with a manual,
Yep.
none of this comes with a manual, so
This is
just
true.
trying to get them to survive
One day at a time.
Yep.
I guess more one moment at a time. So
But man, thank you so much. I don't want to keep you too long. I know this was like a big favor that you gave us, and I really appreciate it. And I hope it was fun for you. I hope it wasn't.
Oh, I love it. I love chatting. It's always fun for me to get to talk to people and find out what they're into and what they're doing. That's why I love running a podcast, getting to tell stories and listen to stories and
I
kind
did
of
love your podcast with Camille LeBlanc Bazinet and Dave the other night. I watched it last night. They're dynamic, and it was really funny too because when you look at the picture, like she's just this big, and his whole body,
right.
yeah, his whole body is in the like. They're so fun, and just like you can tell how much they love each other and feed off each other, and it was a really good podcast. That was super cool.
Yeah, their dynamic something else. She's really quiet. He's
Yeah,
really,
yep.
really kind of an extrovert to say the least. They were fun to talk to. We've been releasing clips of the show. We release the whole show, and then we do the audio version, and in between there we do some clips, just like 8 to 10 minutes, so people can just get kind of snack bites of what it was. And as I've been editing this one, I've thought today how fun it has been to re-listen to, and I honestly don't normally think that because I don't like to listen to myself.
Mhm.
But getting to like really listen to back to some of the things they said that I didn't catch even live has been really fun for me. And they're both really smart, engaging, fun people. So it's a good time.
Their their business savvy to me was like, I mean, obviously her journey being pregnant, that's a whole different that was amazing. And she's just that, I mean, both of them to get through that was insane. But just business savvy wise from that, when they were talking about all wow, like they've figured it out, and they're so smart, and they're so, he takes care of her, she takes care of him, and it's just gorgeous to see. So
Yeah,
that was super cool.
I suspect they're doing real well. I don't know anything about their business, their financial numbers or anything like that. I saw them at semis, and they're hustling for it. I mean, big props to them for how hard they work, and by all appearances, they're doing really, really well. They're in an interesting space within CrossFit where she's a former champion and not really leveraging that. In my
Mhm.
opinion, I mean, she has her own fitness program, but it isn't like, hey, train like a CrossFit champion. It's more aesthetics, and
Mhm.
he is purely aesthetics,
Aesthetics, yeah.
and he has a deep CrossFit background too. So it's an interesting space that they're carving for themselves of people that want to have big arms and look good naked, and I
Yeah,
think
I'm not
I
mad at
like
it.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not mad
I'm not
either.
mad
I
at
like
it.
it.
Mhm.
Well,
Some,
shoot, that was, you just reminded me. That was the other thing I wanted to ask you about. There's a lot of people that have been in CrossFit for a really long time. If you do you have the time for this? I don't.
I got all night. I'm just
Okay.
chilling.
Okay, cool. Um, that are like have been in CrossFit for a long time. Like my wife and I have both done it for like 5, 6 years now. Obviously, Camille and Dave did it forever,
Mhm.
and and people are starting to come kind of down from it. And it's just like, yeah, it's a great training piece, but it's not everything I want to do. I don't want to eat, sleep, and breathe it all the time. It's um because we now have found boxing. We both like to box. We train other things. We weightlift again. We kind of got back a bodybuilder kind of, but with a little bit of CrossFit mixed in. And everybody's like kind of mad at it. Like, I feel like the CrossFit space is kind of mad at it. Like, no, you just have to, do 100 burpees for time every 5 minutes. And it's
Right.
like, I don't want to. And they kind of get mad at you for saying, I I like CrossFit and I believe in the methodology, but I might not want to do this all the time. This might not be
Right.
my number one focus every single day, all day.
Mhm.
And I'm just kind of wondering is that if that backlash is coming, where now all these people that are like kind of okay, we understand it, we believe in it, but this isn't, we're not going to eat, sleep, and drink the Kool-Aid kind of thing all day.
I don't know. I guess it depends on how the affiliates want to run their brands. I mean, CrossFit gives, I own an affiliate, or I'm a co-owner in an affiliate, and they give us full autonomy to run it however we want. And by all accounts, they're always going to do that. I think if the affiliates continue to preach the methodology and don't give a hard time to the people that are go doing other things for fun,
Mhm.
everybody will be just fine. Like, I do a lot of things for fun that aren't quote unquote CrossFit. I don't do CrossFit 5 days a week, and I own the place. Like,
Mhm.
I do CrossFit 3 days a week,
That's
and
cool to hear.
the other 3 days a week I do zone 2 training, and I train at home and do some just straight up strength training, like traditional bodybuilding type
Yeah.
stuff.
Mhm.
I do things that I think are best for my body. And I don't think for me, and I'm only speaking for me, not the methodology, that my 53-year-old body can hold up to 5 fully intense,
Yeah.
hard CrossFit workouts 5 days a week for 52 weeks out of the year. I just
Mhm.
don't, and I don't find it enjoyable. And, you've heard it said a million times, the fitness methodology that works the best is the one that you consistently do. And,
100%.
I like
you
that a
know,
lot.
Mhm.
so for me, doing CrossFit 3 to 4 days a week and other things a couple of days a week is far more enjoyable and makes me appreciate the CrossFit workouts more.
Mhm.
So I don't think the affiliates should be filling in with things that aren't CrossFit. I think affiliates should teach CrossFit, but they should allow space for their members to do other pursuits, and they won't lose those members. It's when you pigeonhole them and go, nope, you can only do this, that you start to lose people.
I think that's where we're getting to. I think there's been enough people in the space for a long enough amount of time, from whatever age you found it at. Like I found it at what was I, 35?
Yeah, it
I think
was
I
right
was
before.
35 when I
Yep.
found it.
Mhm.
And I absolutely jumped into it all the way. Like just hook, line, and sinker. I'm doing this all day. I'm gonna come back, do accessories for however long. I'm gonna lift and whatever for however long. And it just, after a while, it was kind of like, but there's so many other fun things to do, outside of the gym. There's bike riding, there's swimming, and it just doesn't fit into, it's not like I can go to the local pool and be like, hey, I'm going to throw kettlebells at the,
Right.
like I can't make it a CrossFit workout. I just want to go swimming. Like I just might want to go for a long swim.
Well,
And
I point out to everyone that the original Fitness in 100 Words quite clearly said, learn and play new sports.
Mhm.
Regularly learn and play new sports. And so, like, that was one of Coach Glassman's central tenets of CrossFit was you should be doing things outside of CrossFit. He just
Yep.
didn't word it that way. He said, learn and play new sports. And we only have so many hours in the day, so
Yeah.
the pickleballers that are out there driving me crazy talking about pickleball more than they talk about CrossFit are doing exactly what he told them to do.
Yep.
They want to
Yeah.
learn the new sport.
Pickleball. Yeah.
That is the new
That is the
sport.
new sport.
That is definitely the new sport.
It's the new CrossFit. If you're a vegan atheist who plays pickleball, you've checked all the boxes. All the boxes.
I'm dead.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Jeez. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate this. This was a super cool conversation. I'm not really one that, I don't like to interview. I kind of just like to have conversation. And I'm not good at interviewing at all, but I just
me
like to
either.
have conversations. And this was super cool. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Anytime.
I really do appreciate it. You're awesome. And you're even more cool in person than your meme page.
I appreciate it. There's a lot of debate whether that's true or not, but I appreciate your insight to it. So thanks.
Well, I look forward to the next one because wait, go down, Jeff, because this one is my favorite where it's the polar bear that's
Which one?
getting out. Is that no, it's the bear, just a regular bear that's getting up for CrossFit
Yeah.
after holiday weekend.
Yeah.
I saw that one and I was like, yes, that's how we all feel. So
that's me most days.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, I look forward to your next one, and it was very nice to meet you. So thank you for taking the time to do this with us. It was super fun.
Anytime. Nice meeting you guys.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much, John.
All right.
All
See
right,
ya.
we'll
Have a
talk
good
soon.
night.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
That was so cool. That was cool.
Any last words?
Yeah, no. Just
The thing
getting
about pickleball, I think, was like the stamp on the end of the show.
just getting to talk about new things with new people and new perspectives, and I'm proud of that.
Yeah,
So
we're doing it. We're
awesome.
doing it. Super fun. So, all right, guys. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.